Imagine that you are standing on a vast plateau between the Zagros Mountains and the deserts of Central Asia. Before you lies an ancient land that for thousands of years has been a crossroads of civilizations. The armies of great conquerors marched across these lands. Empires rose and fell here. Religions, poetry, and scientific ideas were created here, ideas that would influence the entire world. This land is Persia. Today, we call it Iran. To understand modern Iran, we must travel back 2,500 years to the moment when the first Persian Empire appeared. The Middle East is divided among several powerful states. Babylon controls the rich lands of Mesopotamia. Lydia rules over Asia Minor. And on the Iranian plateau, the Medes hold power. But in the south lives a people who are not yet considered a great force, the Persians. Among them appears a man who will change the history of the region. His name is Cyrus II, known to history as Cyrus the Great. Around 550 BCE, Cyrus leads a rebellion against the Median king. The result of this uprising is an event that can be seen as the birth of the Persian state. But Cyrus does not stop there. He begins a rapid expansion of his kingdom. First, the wealthy kingdom of Lydia falls. Then comes one of the greatest cities of the ancient world, Babylon. When Cyrus's army enters the city in 539 BCE, something unusual happens for that era. Cities were usually destroyed. Peoples were enslaved. But Cyrus does something different. He allows many of the peoples who had been deported by previous rulers to return to their homelands and rebuild their temples. This policy of tolerance becomes one of the main reasons for the remarkable stability of the new empire. Within just a few decades, the state founded by Cyrus becomes the largest power of its time, stretching from India to the Mediterranean Sea. But creating a vast empire is only half the task. It must also be governed. This is something the next great ruler of Persia clearly understands. Darius I tasked Darius carries out reforms that transform the Persian state into an extraordinarily effective system of administration. The empire is divided into satrapies, or provinces. Each is governed by a satrap, but they are closely monitored by royal inspectors known as the eyes and ears of the king. Darius also builds one of the most impressive infrastructure systems of the ancient world, the Royal Road. It connects the major cities of the empire. Couriers are able to travel enormous distances in a matter of days. In essence, it becomes the first intercontinental administrative network in history. But in the West, Persia soon encounters a new rival. A young Macedonian king appears on the political map, Alexander the Great. He is only 20 years old when he becomes the ruler of Macedonia after the assassination of his father, King Philip II. But his ambitions extend far beyond Greece. In 334 BCE, Alexander begins a campaign against the Achaemenid Persian Empire, the largest state of that time. The first major clash takes place at the Granicus River in Asia Minor. The Macedonian army, despite the numerical superiority of the Persians, wins the battle. This opens the way for Alexander deep into Persian territories. Then two more key battles follow. The Battle of Issus, 333 BCE, the first encounter between Alexander and the Persian king Darius III. The Persian army is defeated, and the Battle of Gaugamela, 331 BCE, the decisive battle in which Alexander finally crushes the Persian forces. Darius III flees, and the Persian Empire effectively ceases to exist. Alexander enters Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the Persian kings. This city had been a symbol of Achaemenid power. In 330 BCE, the palace at Persepolis burns in a great fire. Historians still debate whether this was a deliberate act of revenge for the destruction that the Persians had once inflicted on Greece, or the result of a celebration that got out of control. This fire becomes a symbolic end of the Achaemenid era. However, Alexander does not seek to destroy Persian civilization. On the contrary, he begins a policy of cultural integration. He adopts elements of Persian court etiquette, wears Persian clothing, and encourages marriages between Macedonians and Persians. One such event is the mass wedding at Susa, where hundreds of Greek officers marry Persian noblewomen. After Alexander's death in 323 BCE, his empire collapses, but a new cultural world emerges, the Hellenistic civilization, where Greek and Eastern cultures become closely intertwined. This becomes one of the first major examples of cultural globalization in history. After the collapse of Alexander's empire, a new power gradually emerges on Iranian lands, the Parthian Empire. Its founder is considered to be Arsacid, the leader of the Parni tribe. By the 1st century BCE, the Parthian state becomes a powerful empire controlling vast territories from Mesopotamia to Central Asia. One of the most famous events of this period is the Battle of Carrhae, 53 BCE. The Roman general Marcus Crassus, one of the members of the First Triumvirate, invades Parthia. He expects an easy victory. However, the Parthian army uses an unusual military strategy. The key role is played by horse archers and heavily armored cavalry, known as cataphracts. The Parthian archers continuously shower Roman legions with arrows without engaging in close combat. This tactic proves devastating for the heavily armed Roman infantry. Crassus's army is destroyed, and he himself is killed. This defeat becomes one of the most humiliating losses in the history of Rome. The Parthians also play a crucial role in the development of the Silk Road, the vast trade network connecting China, India, Persia, and Rome. Caravans passing through their lands transport Chinese silk, Indian spices, Roman glass, Persian carpets, and metal goods. Thus, Persia becomes the most important intermediary between the East and the West. In the 3rd century CE, a new dynasty seizes power in Iran, the Sasanians. Its founder, Ardashir, defeats the last Parthian king and establishes a centralized empire. The Sasanians consider themselves heirs to the ancient Persian tradition. Under their rule, Zoroastrianism becomes the state religion. Fire temples are built throughout the country, and the priesthood gains significant influence. The Sasanian era becomes a period of development in science and philosophy. In the city of Gundishapur, one of the greatest scientific centers of the ancient world is established. Scholars from different regions work there, Greek, Persian, and Indian. The Academy of Gundishapur becomes known for its achievements in medicine, astronomy, and philosophy. Some historians consider it to be one of the first universities in the world. The Sasanian Empire becomes the main rival of the Byzantine Empire. One of the most remarkable episodes occurs in 260 CE, the Persian king Shapur. The Roman army and captures the Roman Emperor Valerian. This is the only known case in history when a Roman emperor becomes a prisoner of a foreign enemy. In the 7th century, a new religion emerges on the Arabian Peninsula, Islam, founded by the Prophet Muhammad. After the unification of the Arab tribes, the Arab state begins a rapid expansion. In 636 CE, the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah takes place, where the Arab army defeats the Persian forces. A few years later, the Sasanian capital, Ctesiphon, falls. By the middle of the 7th century, the Sasanian Empire disappears. However, Persian culture begins to play an enormous role within Islamic civilization. Many administrative systems of the Caliphate are based on Persian models of governance. The Persian language becomes an important cultural language across a vast region, from the Middle East to Central Asia. Several centuries later, Persian culture experiences a true flourishing. Around the year 1000, the poet Ferdowsi completes the epic poem Shahnameh, the Book of Kings. It is one of the longest epic poems in world literature. The poem preserves the memory of ancient Persian history and its legendary heroes. It plays a crucial role in shaping Iranian national identity. Persian scholars also make enormous contributions to world science. Ibn Sina, Avicenna, writes the medical treatise, The Canon of Medicine. This work is used in European universities until the 17th century. Al-Biruni, another outstanding scholar, makes important discoveries in astronomy, mathematics, and geography. Persian poetry becomes one of the most influential literary traditions in the world. Poets such as Omar Khayyam, Rumi, and Hafez create works that are translated into dozens of languages and are still read today. In the 16th century, the founder of the Safavid dynasty, Shah Ismail I, seizes power in Iran. In 1501, he declares Shia Islam the state religion. This decision radically changes the religious map of the region. Before that, the majority of the Muslim world had been Sunni. Iran becomes the main center of Shia Islam. This leads to a long confrontation with the Ottoman Empire, the largest Sunni power of that time. In the 20th century, a new era begins. Reza Shah Pahlavi comes to power. He launches a large-scale modernization of the country. Railways are built, a modern army is created, and industry begins to develop. However, authoritarian policies and rapid social changes cause dissatisfaction among parts of society. In the late 1970s, mass protests spread across the country. The Shah leaves Iran. A religious movement led by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini comes to power. Iran becomes the Islamic Republic. This event completely changes the political course of the country and has a profound impact on the politics of the entire Middle East. Today, Iran remains one of the most influential countries in the Middle East. It is a state with a population of more than 85 million people, vast reserves of oil and gas, and a powerful political system that combines religious authority with republican institutions. Formally, the country has a president, a parliament, and elections. But the highest authority belongs to the supreme leader, who controls the armed forces, foreign policy, and key state institutions. It is around this system that the major political events of the past decades have unfolded. The most important figure in Iran for more than 3 decades was Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He became supreme leader in 1989 after the death of the founder of the Islamic Republic, Ruhollah Khomeini. During his years in power, Khamenei developed a strategy often referred to as the Axis of Resistance, a network of allies and armed groups across the Middle East, including the Lebanese organization Hezbollah, various Shiite militias in Iraq, allied forces in Syria, and Palestinian movements. This network of alliances allowed Iran to exert influence over regional politics and counter the power of Israel and the United States. However, in 2026, Khamenei was killed in an airstrike connected to a military operation by the United States and Israel targeting the Iranian leadership. His death became one of the most dramatic events in modern Iranian history and triggered a serious power crisis within the country. Relations between Iran and the United States deteriorated sharply after the 1979 revolution, when the American embassy in Tehran was seized and U.S. diplomats were taken hostage. Since then, a long-standing confrontation has existed between the two countries. The main causes of the conflict include Iran's nuclear program, Iran's influence in the Middle East, support for allied armed groups, and U.S. sanctions against the Iranian economy. In 2026, the conflict reached a new and dangerous level. The United States and Israel carried out a joint air operation against Iranian military facilities and command centers. During these strikes, the following targets were attacked: missile bases, military headquarters, facilities connected to the nuclear program. As a result of the strikes, several high-ranking Iranian officials were killed, including Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. This became the largest blow to the country's leadership in the entire history of the Islamic Republic. Today, Iran remains one of the most complex and controversial countries in the world. It is a state with one of the oldest civilizations on Earth, vast energy resources, and significant political influence in the Middle East. The conflict with the United States and Israel remains one of the most dangerous flashpoints in global politics, and regional crises constantly remind the world how fragile the balance of power can be. After the death of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, power in the country passed to his son, Mojtaba Khamenei, an influential Shiite cleric who for many years was considered one of the most secretive yet highly influential figures within Iran's political system. Whether his rule will mark the beginning of a new chapter in the country's history or a continuation of the previous course, only time will tell. But one thing remains unchanged. Iran is a country whose history spans more than 2,500 years. Empires have fallen. Conquerors have come and gone. Revolutions have changed governments, yet Persian civilization has always found a way to survive and continue influencing the world. And perhaps that is why the story of Iran is not only a story of the past, it is a story that is still being written before our eyes today.